this year I got hit in the face with a terrible towel probably 3 times. So I was
man.
like, okay, we need to put the towel away.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a whole another level, and the fans are hyped, and the players are hyped. It's just awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Welcome back to another episode of Georgeonsports with me, your host George, and on today's show, I'm joined by Katie Overly, who was nominated for 2022 as an NFL Fan of the Year, but was also selected as the Baltimore Ravens Fan of the Year. Katie, how are you? And thank you for joining the show.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for what you're doing and everything you've accomplished. This is great. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm really excited for this because we've got a lot to talk about, so I'm going to get straight into it and ask you what your first exposure to football was. Take me back to that time.
Well, high school for me was about basketball. It was a varsity 4 years. So after hanging up my shoes, I was like, okay, what's next? And then I just sort of got into the whole football thing. And, it's such a big presence over here. And sort of went to all the different areas. We have Pittsburgh. I'm close to Philadelphia and Baltimore. So finding what fit for me.
It's interesting you say that because over there, I mean, people were playing basketball. Obviously, football's up there too, baseball as well. And those are the kind of go-to sports being stateside. But over here, the go-to sports tend to be football or soccer, I'll say, rugby. And American football doesn't really show itself over here yet. The sport is still growing. Flag football is a really big thing at the minute over here. I know flag football is a big thing over there too. If you look at the Pro Bowl, they've included flag football now in the Pro Bowl as well. But I'm just curious to know how, obviously, you said about where you are in terms of your area. What inspired you to become a Ravens fan, considering you had all these other places around you? What is it that inspired you to become a Ravens fan? I can see you're wearing the gear, you got the hat, you got the board behind you, you got the jersey on. Tell me all about that.
So my first trip to Baltimore, it was an experience of just the NFL in general and sort of actually being there and just the environment. I feel like everyone, if you can, should experience an NFL game. It's like you just can't describe it unless you've been there. I mean, it was just like the fans, the players, like everyone just coming together. It just was so cool. And then the tailgating, the Ravens walk, like all these cool things, and to bring the community in too and support each other. It just felt like a good fit. And I was a big Joe Flacco fan. So that sort of helped help me get there from the University of Delaware. So that was cool.
Yeah, you mentioned Joe Flacco. I mean, he's obviously a guy he's done a lot for the Ravens. I've been involved in the sport. I mean, I played for 11 years over here. I played running back over here, and I've followed the sport for even longer. And whilst I've seen the sport grow, I don't think it's not at the point yet where we can reel off names and people will know who we're talking about. Like, you can walk down the road or move to whatever city you're in, and you mentioned football or Joe Flacco or one of your running backs, J.K. Dobbins, and then they're going to know who you're talking about. If I do that over here, people will look at me like I'm crazy. And that just goes to show, like, we're not quite at the point yet where we're able to just talk about the sport in all its glory. But I will say the sport is growing, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, we have 3 games here every year now. We have 2 games at the Tottenham Stadium. We have 1 game at Wembley. You probably know about that too. And every year we sell out all the stadiums, we sell out all the games, and it's only a matter of time before we have bring more games over here. And there's a talk about having a franchise over here too, which personally I'm not too sure how that can work given the logistics. But it's on the rise. And so having you on the show is great because it's always good to speak to like diehard fans. And we're going to get into some more of that diehard culture that you talk about with the Ravens. But I want to flip the script slightly and talk about your role as a nurse. Now, you've been in nursing for 13 years, I believe, and you worked through the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic was a really tough time for everybody involved. And you was on the surgical unit too, I believe. And you're known as the nurse with the purple hair, which I feel like is a really great way to like bond with your patients in nursing too. But how does your passion for Ravens football help in those sort of challenging times? I mentioned obviously the lady with the purple hair. I guess that's one way that you can connect with your your patients in hospital. But how does that passion that you carry for sport and Ravens, how does that carry over into your work?
So the pandemic, I mean, you ask anyone in healthcare, I think we can sum it up to like the word horrible. Um, it was tough, and it was exhausting day in, day out. So for me, especially during like the football season, that weekend was my time to like unwind from work in general, just the regular work week. I looked so much forward to that weekend. So that's what made football so enjoyable for Sundays. But the patience, so I'm surrounded by a lot of Eagles and Steelers fans, so I feel like I had to really defend myself. And that was okay. We, agree to disagree and a friendly rivalry. But it was just like something to bond over, to be a part of. Now, my pandemic experience was more in long-term care.
Right.
So those residents really, they didn't get to see their families. It was more just like telephone and Zoom calls. So like being able to be there for them and connecting with them in whatever way it needed to be. So if I needed to be an Eagles fan to, put a smile on their face or bring up a stat, that I'm Googling about Eagles players.
Yeah.
So, whatever you need to do it's just the right thing to do and part of healthcare and being a nurse.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something earlier, which I wanted to pick on. You mentioned about the friendly rivalries. Now, I know what it's like over here in the UK with soccer. I mean, it can get quite intense. I'm an Arsenal fan. I don't know if you know about Arsenal. And at the minute, we're sitting at the top of the league. But talk to me about what it's like being a Ravens fan, and obviously everything that you guys are going through right now with Lamar Jackson. We're going to come on to that later. But what is that rivalry like? So if you're obviously you go to games, and we're going to touch on, I think you trek to every home game as well. What is the rivalry like? I mean, I know certain fans have your reputation. The Bills are known as the crazy guys who jump through tables. The Eagles like to climb lampposts and jump on cars. What is it like as being a Ravens fan and having that kind of rivalry with other teams?
I have to say, just the rivalry with Pittsburgh this season. Now, my seats are on the visitor side, so naturally I get a lot of the other teams in my area, and I try to be supportive. It's their first time to the stadium, have fun with it. But like the Steelers game is just like a whole nother level. Like I'm like hanging on, like watching everybody around me. Like it's just the vibe. And I think this year I got hit in the face with a terrible towel probably 3 times. So I was like, okay, we need to put the towel away.
Yeah.
Like it's like a whole another level, and the fans are hyped, and the players are hyped. It's just awesome.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think I've been to quite a lot of the games they have over here in the UK, but it's different because over here you see a collection of fans from teams all over the NFL. Although you might have the Jags playing the Giants or the Colts playing the Jags, you might see some fans from those teams, but generally you see all the teams represented in the stadium. And so the atmosphere isn't so much like a home game for either side or an away game, because unlike yourself, where you guys obviously in the States and you get to go to games both home and away, you can clearly tell if it's a home game, the crowd is up, the 12th man, all of that kind of stuff. But over here, it's very generic. It's still quite, I don't want to say family friendly, not to say that the games out there aren't family friendly, but you can tell the difference. And I think whether that changes, I'm not too sure. I think it depends on the kind of team. For example, the Bills are coming over here for the first time, I think, this year, which is going to be absolutely insane given what we know they're like, right?
Yeah.
But on the note of teams, and you being a Ravens fan, how did you find out that you've been selected as the Ravens fan of the year? So
I first saw the ad about it on the internet, and you click on it and you fill it out, and you're just like, what's the chance? Who am I? So I just went in and just said, hey, like I'm in healthcare, I work hard, Ravens to me, the community, the team, the players, the staff, the coaches, the fans, it means a lot to me, and that I look so much forward to it every week. That's like my time, the preparing and getting ready for tailgating and Sunday. So it was crazy, and I didn't even think anything of it. And all of a sudden, I guess they reached out to my boyfriend to try to get me down there to tell me this news, like to make it a surprise. And honestly, there's not much that gets past me. I know when things off or when something's going So they had to use an experience that he knew I was upset about missing. So this year I had missed training camp just because the tickets sell like that. So he's like, that might be our only way to somehow manipulate, hey, you missed training camp, we know you're a fan, we're having an open practice, please come down.
Mm-hmm.
So he told me about this, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, of course we'll be there, you know. And we get down there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he got the wrong day. Nobody was there. And I was like, I went to the bathroom, and I think I texted him. I said, I can't believe we're here. Like, nobody else is here. We're going to get in trouble. And then I told my son, I'm like, don't touch anything. Like, I didn't break anything, be where we shouldn't be. And here, it was just odd. But it was so nice. I got a tour of the facility. We ended up running into Clayus Campbell, which was, like, awesome.
Oh, wow.
And all of a sudden, they're like, bring me in for some photos, and they're like, you're fan of the year. And I was like, what? It was just like, I think I stood there just for like, is this really happening? But it was so cool. So they got me. That's probably the one time, but yeah, they got me. It was a surprise.
It sounded like a great story, and we're gonna stay on that high right now. We're gonna ride the wave of the high and the great emotions. And I want you to recall some of your most favorite Ravens moment, either be a game or an experience as a fan. Have you got one in particular?
Yeah, definitely. So this one, it wasn't a game. It was the open stadium practice that they do every year. So they're doing the practices, and then at the end, they walk around and sign stuff for the kids and things like that. So I was right on the corner, right where Lamar was walking out to do an interview. And, you know, of course we let the kids down in front and do their thing, but I was sort of like on the side here. And he came down, and I put my hat and had it down hanging to reach, and he caught it, and he's like, oh, I don't have a Sharpie. And I was like, oh, I got you. And I have to have, you know, I come prepared. You're a nurse. You're prepared for anything.
Yeah.
And I had a shoelace and a Sharpie. I put the Sharpie on the shoelace and lowered it down to him. And he was able to sign my hat, and I was like, keep the pen. So it was like a cool experience. And I'm like, what's the chance that the whole stadium, he walked over to where we were.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you said that, because when I watch Red Zone on Sundays, like you said, weekend is for you. Likewise, the Sundays are for me when I get the TV on and watch Red Zone, and then I watch the Colts. I'm a Colts fan. I watch the Colts game on a separate screen, but I always see at the end of games that you just mentioned, the guys that are leaving the tunnel and fans are either like throwing their phones, or they're, like you said, they're, you know, stringing a pen down or something for them to grab hold of. So for that to happen, I mean, the odds of that happening are quite small. So that had to feel quite good, being that it's Lamar Jackson, right? This one might be a bit obvious.
Cool.
I think I might know who you might answer for this one, but who's your favorite Ravens player and why?
Okay. So hands down, Mark Andrews, my favorite. Yeah. It might be a surprise. I'm sure everyone probably, you know, thought otherwise. But yes, love the guy. Like his demeanor, what he does on and off the field, it just, you know, I think that encompasses everything it is to be a Raven and play like a Raven.
Yeah. I will say as well, Mark Andrews, I play NFL fantasy. I have done for over 10 years now, I think. And Mark Andrews is one of those go-to guys. I mean, you see it when you watch him on the field. Like, he's just clutch. The safety blanket, if you like, the Travis Kelce to Mahomes, like, you know, to the Mark Andrews to Lamar, where he will always bail you out, no matter what it is. 4th and 18, second and 2, third and 1. Like, he's that guy who Lamar trusts and always goes to. Whether that is still the case after this season, we don't know, because we don't know what's going to happen with Lamar. But in terms of the Ravens, what do you think sets Ravens fans apart from other fans in the league, if there's anything? And obviously the fact that you yourself being a super fan, a Ravens super fan, I would say that, you know, I've read that you trek to every home game and you have a permanent seat license. You're a seat license holder. Now, immediately I was kind of like, well, if that's what I think it is, then that's pretty cool, man. And that alone is one way to, you know, to stand out from the crowd in terms of being one of the best fans in the league for your team. What is that about? Is a trek to every game a tradition, and having the permanent seat license, how does that come about?
So going to the game previously was just, you know, hit or miss when I could get there. And, we sort of like established our own, rituals and things that we decided to do. So then I was like, after a few years of constantly doing this, I'm like, I'm going to invest into the Ravens. I want my own seats. Something to know I'm going to be here at every game, and that's where you're going to find the girl with the purple hair. She's going to be in that corner right there, cheering for us with my Mark Andrews flag. So
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you
something I knew
do you
I
go
wanted
to games
to do.
with like the big cardboard sign, and you're like,
I try not to be too big because I don't want to annoy the people.
Do you?
So I like have
to...
it like it's just.
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay, so has being a Ravens fan impacted your life in any way at all? I'm going to say obviously positively in some way, shape or form, but people who are find are super fans of a team. I mean, for example, like I said, I'm an Arsenal fan, soccer, and I'll tell you right now, when Arsenal lose, I'm not a happy guy. I'm really not. But when we win, I'm riding high. I'm over the moon. Everything's great. I'm having a great day. So being a Ravens fan, obviously you guys you've done a number of things over the last few seasons. Obviously you're going through a bit of turmoil right now, but has being a Ravens fan impacted your life in any way, shape or form?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I think on the unfortunate events that we don't win a game, or it's like every game last season, it was down to the last 4 minutes. I think my family knows to not talk to me for a little bit. And it's like, I'm just, you're in shock. It's like when you get in trouble with your parents and like they yell at you and you're like, whatever. But when they say I'm disappointed in you, you're like, feel horrible.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I feel when we lose. And I'm like, it's not like I have control, but it's just, it just weighs on your heart because I'm like, dang, these guys played so hard the whole game. We had this. So that's sad to see it. I feel bad for the guys because they're the ones out there doing that work. When we win, it's like, late. If it's a 1:00 game by the afternoon and evening, if it's an away game, I'm home cleaning, accomplishing things, like, just living a good life because I'm like, yes, we won. So it just makes you feel good and you can take on the world.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you on that one. Is there a particular tradition maybe on game day or Ravens game day that you enjoy in particular? Is there something that happens on game day, or I know you mentioned obviously you found your own way in terms of getting to the stadium and the trek that you make, but is there a particular game day tradition that you have as a Ravens fan?
Well, it takes us about an hour, 45 minutes to get there. So we usually have everything packed up and ready to go the night before. On the way down there, I usually always stop at Royal Farms for my breakfast chicken sandwich. It's like, my lucky sandwich that I got in the morning. And then we're there, and we either tailgate at one of the rec centers, so then the money goes to the rec center, which is pretty cool. And it's a nice, area to tailgate. And then sometimes we decide to do the Ravens Walk, which is really cool. They have the bands, the live music, vendors, all sorts of stuff. So, depending on the day and who we're playing and the crowd and the vibe of everything, it can change. But, yeah, definitely, just packing up and heading down there.
Now, you mentioned tailgating, and that's something that I'm yet to experience the full pedigree of, because over here, we don't tailgate like you guys do. So obviously, number one, we don't have the space for it. Number two, from what I've seen, tailgating over there looks like a national holiday before the game has even started. The food, the drink, the band, the environment. That's the one thing that I really want to enjoy. And when I eventually make it over to India, I don't know what India's tailgating is like, but talk to me about tailgating, because from how I understand it, it's almost like Thanksgiving in a parking lot almost. That's what it seems like to me. It's crazy.
That is a great way to describe it. For me, I'm just going to be honest, we're low budget. We stick to the main essentials like buffalo chicken dip, and then like everybody usually brings something to help, to put on the table. But yeah, you set up the table and you just got the smorgasbord of what everyone has. Now, I'm not going to lie, some of the other people that at the rec center, they're all out. I had somebody one time pull out a TV, and they literally had lobster, shrimp, and steak, all like a wedding buffet.
Wow!
And I was like, about to be like, can I join your tailgate? Like, I felt like put to shame. But hey, but everyone is so nice, and everyone shares food, and it's just, it's just all come together, wonderful environment. Everyone's so nice.
So the people who actually tailgate, so the people who set up the tables and have all the food, do they go to the game too? Because if they do, where does all their stuff go?
Yeah, some of them do go in. Now, there has that one example that I told you about. They actually just ended up staying there and watching the game in the parking lot. So, I mean, there's lots of different ways to go about it. I think it's just whatever works for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Let's talk about the main man. You knew it was going to come at some point. Your current quarterback. Yeah, you better touch that hat for good luck. Lamar Jackson. Right. The story continues to unfold. Obviously, we see that he's been tweeting recently about him requesting a trade on the 2nd of March, which apparently was ignored by the team, only for them to slap on the non-exclusive franchise tag, I believe, on the 7th of March. Lamar is now putting tweets out there. Obviously, you saw a number of teams come out and declare that they weren't interested in Lamar the moment free agency opened, which was very bizarre, knowing how many teams need a quarterback. I mean, to you, it's probably good news. You don't want to lose the guy. To me, as a Colts fan, I'm thinking get the guy in the building right now. I mean, what do you think? In your personal opinion, what do you think is going to happen with Lamar? Do you think he's going to be a Raven, or do you think he's going to move on?
Okay, this is the tough one. So I don't think any Ravens fan wants to. No one wants to lose Lamar. You know, that's just the way it is. But I will be the first to admit I know nothing about the business and running a front office of a team. And you know what? I leave it to the professionals, and I have faith in the process that what's meant to be will be. Also, again, you know, I love him to stay, but I can't judge off of not living the life in someone else's shoes. And I think that's another, you know, big thing for everyone. You know, just like no one can say they don't live my life, and I don't know what he has to deal with. So I feel like at this point, all we can do is be supportive and let it roll out. You know, the professionals and the management is doing what they need to do. Mm-hmm. And I know, again, in everyone's heart of hearts, no one wants him to leave. But understanding that, you know, we have to respect what he needs, and, you know, I don't know what he has to go through. But have faith in the Ravens 100% either way. And regardless, we have to start building for next season. So
you do.
I guess that's my, you know, non-exciting answer.
No, I mean, I'm just curious to hear, because obviously, you know, you're the Baltimore Ravens fan of the year. Obviously, Lamar's going through it right now. He really is, from every single angle. I mean, I think recently it came out that Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow have started their contract talks, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have their contract sorted before Lamar has a decision on his future. As a Colts fan, we need a quarterback. We currently have the number 4 pick in the draft. I'm more than happy to go and acquire Lamar services. I'll happily take him off your hands, because we need someone like him. I will say that. But before we wrap things up and come to a close, I want to talk about you being nominated as NFL Fan of the Year for 2022 amongst a number of other fans from the 31 teams. How did that come about? And obviously, you were given Super Bowl tickets. And now I saw the seats that you were sitting in, and oh my gosh, amazing seats. One of the best Super Bowls we've seen. The ending was very debatable, as you know, the refereeing has been debatable all season long. But talk to me about being nominated for NFL Fan of the Year and going to an amazing Super Bowl, watching the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, the experience was so cool. I mean, that's once in a lifetime. I probably never again will get that opportunity. But so I just wanted to soak it all in. The other thing is just meeting the other fan of the years for each team. Like, it's literally like we've become a family. You know, it's all stay in touch, you know, try to meet together when we can. The teams are in the city. Like, I think that's probably one really big thing I took away from that. And as hard as I, you know, couldn't stand to be around Cincinnati after that game this season, you know, the Cincinnati Fan of the Year is a pretty cool guy. You know, and I, you know, gave him a hard time. But it was like, you know, I have to remember, it was just so cool to meet everybody. Just a really cool experience. And getting to do the NFL honors in the Sports Illustrated party, and, of course, the Super Bowl. You know, ideally it would have been cool if the Baltimore was there. But the experience itself was just, like, I got to go on the field. Like, how cool was that? Like, it was I'm just so humble, thankful for everything and to be a part of that. And I'll have to share my Mark Andrews story since,
yes,
he's my favorite player. So we were at the Sports Illustrated party, and, running into people, and you're just like, oh my gosh, there's so-and-so, and I'm trying to keep my cool and not like get all excited like the crazy fan. And we all left, and two of us stayed behind from the other teams. And about 15 minutes later, my friend sends me a selfie with him and Mark Andrews, and he said, "You missed him by 15 minutes."
Oh, no.
I literally started crying on the way home. And they're like, "What's wrong with you?" And I showed everybody, and they were just like shaking their head. But hey, what's meant to be will be, and I'm sure, never know. But everyone, always laughs when I tell them that story.
You might meet him at another event, and, like you said, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. That brings us to the end of the show. Katie, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great speaking to hardcore fans of the NFL, not to mention someone who's been nominated for Fan of the Year 2022 and the official Baltimore Ravens Fan of the Year. Thank you once again for taking the time to come on the show. Keep representing for what you're doing on the front line with your nursing. We need more people like you for sure, without a doubt. Until next time, I've been George from George on Sports, here with Katie Overly, NFL 2022 nominee, NFL Fan of the Year, and the Baltimore Ravens #1 Fan of the Year. Went to the Super Bowl, got to meet someone like Mark Andrews, and had a ball of a time at the honors as well, and Sports Illustrated. I mean, you can't ask for anything more as a fan of the NFL. So once again, thank you for coming on the show. Until next time, we'll see you on the next episode.